Now we're going to talk about the city of Kennewick and some of the projects they've got going on. And in the studio with me right now, I have Evelyn Lusignan, Public Relations Manager for the city of Kennewick. We also have Emily Estes Cross, who is Economic Development Manager. And welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Emily, the very first thing that people want to, that I want to know about, the reason I even called was, what's going on with that piece of property that I drive by every day? And it's all the, motorhome or mobile homes have been moved away. I mean, it looks like it's ready for somebody to start bringing in the backhoes and stuff, and I see nothing going on. What is it?
Well, sure, Christine, you're not the only one who has that question, because I think that Evelyn fields that often at the city of Kennewick.
Absolutely. I've gotten calls on it this week in addition to yours.
Oh.
So, it is privately owned property, so it's up to the people who own it to develop it. Mm-hmm. Certainly the city is there ready and waiting for any development project to come in to make sure that we can assist, that it meets our zoning and those types of things, and help with traffic mitigation and all of that. But when it's privately owned property, until they decide to approach the city with development plans, we don't know what they're intending. And they haven't approached us with what their plans are.
Well, one thing is, I bet you were wondering too, Christine, all of a sudden, after years and years and years and years of the same stuff there, all of a sudden this massive cleanup and refurbishment. And so, yeah, people were thinking something's going to happen there. Was that, did the city go to them and say, hey, or did they just do that themselves?
That's part of the private development process. An investor sees an opportunity with a privately held property. It's nearby one of the biggest assets that we have in Kennewick, and that's the waterfront. From a commercial standpoint, it's close to the Blue Bridge, Highway 395, one of the biggest traffic counts in the area. They see an opportunity, but pulling that many individual property owners under one auspice and redeveloping what looks to be about 33 acres is a tremendous undergoing. So where they take it from here remains to be seen, but we do recognize at the city what a valuable opportunity it could be, especially in terms of, you talk about years and years and years. For years and years and years, we've been talking about redevelopment between the bridges along the Columbia Drive waterfront. And so that's where the city's at right now, is focusing some of its efforts into that area and encouraging those property owners who have property to drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, to look at the vision that the community has outlined, what they want to see happen with that waterfront, and hopefully they'll follow suit.
But they don't have to. I mean, they could put a big box store on it.
Absolutely, they could, if it's zoned for that. And that's, private enterprise in the good old United States of America.
Yeah. So what else is, I know that you are working on that bridge to bridge, so what are the big projects down there that you're trying to get current property owners to buy the Kool-Aid? Are you offering any incentives?
It's against Washington state law to do the traditional type of incentives, I think, that people think in terms of. But the incentive that we have available to us right now is through a private contest that the city of Kennewick was recently announced as a quarterfinalist in, and that's the America's Best Communities contest, in which we've won $50,000 courtesy of Frontier Communications and their sponsors to invest in downtown and waterfront revitalization. So if there's projects that money can go towards that improve the state of the economy, and so not just beautification speaks to quality of life, and that's pretty critical, but we need to quantify how that investment can help support job growth, for example, increase property values. So you see what I'm getting at, quantifiable data that shows that we're improving the economic health of our community. And that $50,000 from the America's Best Communities contest has been a huge catalyst in getting the project moving, something that we've been talking about in the community since around 2002, 2003. Development isn't fast, especially when it's planned, especially when it involves a number of different entities, like the Corps of Engineers and their responsibility to manage, govern the waterways. The Port of Kennewick owns a lot of property. They have an economic development mission. They're on the same page with the city of Kennewick that has an economic development mission. You've got the railroad in there. They're a major stakeholder in addition to private property owners. So there's a lot of folks that need to come together, get organized, and continue that momentum moving forward.
I do see a lot of momentum in all the cities, and I think most citizens here recognize that as well. I wanted to look at business licenses. I want to look at a couple of things that give us an indication of what is happening in Kennewick. So what's going on with business licenses as a comparison? What can you tell me, Evelyn?
Well, the last couple of years we've been at about the same level. We have 4,600 active licenses in the city. That includes our commercial locations, home-based businesses, and we also license businesses who come into the city to do work. So contractors that are building homes or painters, they license with us as well. Just this year, we transitioned over to the Department of Revenue's business licensing system just 2 months ago in May. And that is a partnership that we have with them. That includes City of Richland's been a partner with them for many years. West Richland, Prosser, and Spokane are all in that system. And the majority of businesses can get their license in one place. They can license with the state, register with the Department of Revenue, and then get their city addendum. So it's really great, for example, contractors who have to license in multiple jurisdictions. They can get one license and have their license with Richland, Kennewick, and others all in one. And with that, since we've been in that transition phase, we haven't been doing a lot of canvassing. There are some unlicensed businesses. So I think our numbers are actually higher, and I believe this year will actually increase our numbers now that we're partnering with the state and have everybody in one system. But the numbers are still very good. I've been with the city for 21 years, and when I started, I know that we were in the low 2000s in the number of business licenses, and now we're at 4,600, so it's more than doubled.
Okay. Yeah.
And every year it grows. Businesses are always looking to come here. This is a happening area to be in.
It is. And I want to talk about Southridge. We better take a break here. We want to talk about new building, building permits, residential and commercial as well, just to get another picture of what's going on. If you've got a question, here's the phone number, 547-8726. Got a question for us today on Meet in the Middle? Here's the phone number, 547-8726. With me in the studio today is Evelyn Lusignan, Public Relations Manager for the City of Kennewick, and also Emily Estes Cross, the Economic Development Manager. I don't know who wants to take this question, but tell me about building permits, both for residential and business. What do we know about building in the Kennewick area? Is it going up, down, staying the same?
It's very busy and it's continuing to go up. I took a look at the numbers for 2014. We were a little over 2,000 permits for the year, and it was about close to 100 over the previous year. And we're tracking now through June, we're at a little over 1,000 permits. Through June of last year, we were a little over 980. So again, the activity was high last year and it was high the year before. You drive around our community on any given day and you see something going up. So a lot of activity, both with housing and commercial, a lot of new housing developments, a lot of new businesses, and we're excited about the growth.
There is a lot of growth. So if you drive around the Southridge area, which seems to be, every city seems to have their little pocket of what is exploding, and here in, over there in Kennewick, it seems to be Southridge. What are some of the new things going in that maybe folks don't know about? I mean, I drive by them and I don't. What's going in there?
Gosh, you know, yeah, it's very exciting. The new hotel is about to open up there, the medical office building under construction, the Baja Fresh business is going to be opening soon, Roasters Coffee is new. I mean, any given day you go through there and they're working on projects. They're grading up on a ridgeline. There's a new landscaping company that's going in there. A building across the highway over by Holy Macandeli, there's a new building going up there as well. The owner of that property is building, he sees the opportunity, the growth in the area. Don't know what's going to go into that building yet, but he's building a building to bring in new tenants there as well.
Mm-hmm. So lots of new building going on there. Oh, wow. Columbia Park and the Army Corps of Engineers. It seems like that has been like maybe a 3-decade, I'm going to call it a struggle. because it seems to me, as a private citizen, that the Army Corps of Engineers should have given that to the city of Kennewick and walked away from having to deal with that years and decades ago. And they still hold on. So I know there's new effort underway to try to get more control over Columbia Park from the Army Corps. What is the latest there?
Well, we have been working with the Corps for several years now, specifically looking at the area down by the fishing pond, working with them to see if there's a way that we can convey about 60 acres of property to the city.
You mean the duck pond?
Around the duck pond, in the area where the car sales happen, in that area, the grassy area. When you
okay, I'm sorry, yeah,
yes.
yeah, the children's fishing pond, okay.
Yes. No, I'm sorry, not the duck pond, the fishing pond.
Yeah, the fishing. No, you said, but okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so there's about a total of 60 acres in that area that we're working with the Corps on. And currently they're going through and doing all of the legal descriptions on that, because before you can transfer the property, you have to have it all spelled out. And those properties are actually hundreds of little parcels that were old homesteads. And so the legal descriptions are very complex, and the Corps is working through that. And we have a phased approach. We're kind of getting that all in place, and then a value would be put on that as a mechanism for potentially transferring over to the city. But it is a long process. It takes a couple of years to get through all of those steps and deciding if we want to move on to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've talked to a couple of cities now just to get them, their folks, whether it's city managers or whoever they are, to come and talk with us here and talk about their city. And you know what I heard from Richland, and we'll get a chance to talk to the city manager next week, is that they want to focus on the rivers. So what's fascinating, their riverfront. What's fascinating to me is that we've been in, like, I feel, a 2-decade slumber, that we have this incredible jewel right in the middle of our cities, and we haven't taken advantage of it. And now we're awakening to it. We're saying, wow, what could we do? What is the city of Kennewick thinking about all of that waterfront that is somehow adjacent to the city of Kennewick?
Well, I think my project would be really great to talk about, and it ties into what we were talking about a little earlier on our bridge to bridge, is the wine village concept that we're working in partnership with the port, where we don't have control on what someone will develop on private property outside of zoning. When it's publicly owned, then we can control some development. And we have a great partnership with the port, and I think Emily could really talk a little bit more on what we're doing there.
Sure. Rather systematically, the port has purchased property along the waterfront so that it will have control over the development of it. And so to see that wine village start to come to fruition, there's already been improvements made along that stretch of Columbia Drive. They've demolished buildings, and they're ready to start with some of the infrastructure, and then later this year the construction of the actual buildings, followed by some streetscape improvements. So there is visible change happening along Columbia Drive, just south of Clover Island. And that's another, I think, consideration when you talk about the efforts that have been put forth to revitalize the waterfront to date. Clover Island is a huge win, and it's just a fantastic showcase of what the port and the city have the capability of doing, and we'd like to now extend that along Columbia Drive, and even connect it to historic downtown Kennewick. Historic downtown Kennewick was constructed or erected where it is because of floods. You know, it couldn't be that close to the river, and what was happening on the river historically, it was used as a source of transportation. It was a foundation of our economy. Over the years, that has changed. It's now an asset for recreation. So we're changing development to follow along with those trends.
That's nice. I've seen the changes that are happening down there. Clover Island, boy, if people haven't been out there, they need to go and just drive out there, park your car, and walk up and down it. There are restaurants, great places, wonderful places to sit. There's the marina to take a look at. I mean, it's wonderful. Really, really nice. What other areas is Kennewick involved in that people would find interesting?
Well, what the interesting, one of the interesting components of Kennewick is it's 27 square miles of opportunity, and that's why we identify different opportunity centers. And I think we would be remiss to ignore Vista Field. While that's also port-owned property, and thereby it's their responsibility to develop that, and they're working on that in a very public type of a limelight. It's the city's responsibility to work in conjunction with them on the infrastructure component. So that's a long-term project, and for that reason, we have a focus right now on downtown and waterfront revitalization. It already exists. The framework is already there. So in terms of recruiting businesses, improving quality of life, even a residential component, we can actively work with what's already along the water and in historic downtown Kennewick. Vista Field, it's a ways out there, but it is a phenomenal opportunity, almost unprecedented in terms of being able to develop a new regional center for the Tri-Cities, not just for Kennewick, but for the entire Tri-Cities. Mm-hmm. So extending beyond Vista Field and beyond downtown, we've talked a little bit about Southridge. That's the new and shiny attraction for a number of businesses to develop, and that's what they're looking at, and service the residential growth there. In comparison, the residential growth near the Hanson Park area off of Columbia Center Boulevard in the western part of town is also significant, and we're going to see that residential growth continue, which means that there's going to be even more, if it's possible, infill growth in the Columbia Center Boulevard commercial district. It's hard to find a piece of property, it's hard to find a vacant building along Columbia Center Boulevard, but the national type of businesses that are looking to locate here still want to be close to the mall. So that's an area that will continue to grow.
When is that Hildebrand connection going to be done?
Well, that is a top priority for council. So we are still looking at that last stretch to connect it to Sherman Street. They're working on the phase 3B right now that'll open within a few weeks, where the Five Corners area, we just put in a roundabout and the extension from 4th to the Five Corners area. That's going to be very nice. Now it's getting it to go back around and connect with Sherman, and then we'll have the full circle around the Tri-City. So they're doing some. Part of this project is funded to do some preliminary work for that future last connection, and doing some grading and some utility work, and then the last piece of it will be getting, finding the funding to do that last piece. But it is a top priority for council to get that completed.
Hey, do you have like private investors that come to the city of Kennewick and say, what should I do with my money? Where should I put it? Where is growth, development? How can projects and things that are happening in city benefit me? Where can I put my money? Do they do that?
Rarely, but we seek them out. Public-private partnership is a buzzword right now in economic development and in jurisdictions across the nation, because we realize the significance and the need for private investment in our communities. So we try to connect those folks with property owners, or try to show them what the long-term vision of the community is, so that they can see what type of role they can play to help bring that to fruition. Mm-hmm. A lot of those investors would tend to come from the outside, and they just need a time to get educated with what direction the city is developing in.
Yeah, well, I can remember listening to the city manager of Yakima, and I know that's kind of strange for people here in the Tri-Cities, but they have a plaza in the middle of their city, if any people know about Yakima. And it's basically a parking lot right now, so their vision is to make that a huge gathering center and to try to convince their citizens, which has been very difficult, but I think they're on the road now, is understanding that when you create the infrastructure like you're talking about, then it attracts people. They're just like ants coming to food, so people are there. When people are there, that means money. And so private industry or private investment is a lot more apt to participate. They want to build around it. So I hope that happens for us.
As do we. What's interesting to think about is a private investor, they have a lot of money, but it's still their money. And so sometimes when we get approached by folks who say, I just don't understand why we don't have XYZ business in Kennewick already, or why we haven't developed that parcel along the waterfront already. And when you ask them, if it were you and if it were your money, is that how you would invest it? And they say, that's a little bit of a risk, isn't it? I want to see how that continues to develop. I want to see the urban wine village constructed and operating, and all the people who are excited to visit and patronize it on Columbia Drive before I invest my money in that cool high-rise condo that has a fantastic view of Clover Island and the Columbia River,
that's
right?
what I want.
That's
7th
exactly
story
it.
swimming pool on the 7th floor. Yes.
Yes.
Somebody's got to do that. It's going to be so nice. All right, ladies, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate that. Learned a lot today about a number of subjects. So we have learned a lot about City of Kennewick. Maybe you'll come back again.
I would love to.
Okay, good. All right, we're back in a moment here.